Hello, I'm Grace Hawes. This is my final project, my magnum opus, if you will. Um, Here we go. So, for my final project, I decided to create an exhibit, if you will. In theory, this would travel from museum to museum across the country or, wherever. Um, and with the artist that I picked, with the art that I picked, it would be billions of dollars. I did not consider that at all. I just picked art that I wanted to be in it. This is not a purchase pitch by any means, but it is what I wanted. And I wanted to focus on 20th century women and what they represented, how they changed their movements by themselves. Because 20th century art is great. That's one thing we learned this semester. But what I really took away from the semester is that women really got to, insert themselves. And so I wanted to show that in my final project. So here we go. On the first page, we have Yayoi Kusama's one of the balls from Narcissus Garden from 1966, but that's not part of it. That's just part of the PowerPoint. Anyways, so imagine you walk into the gallery. This is the first piece you're going to see before you see any information. I want you to see What is Feminist Art by Judy Chicago, 1977. I don't know if it'll let me scroll in on this PowerPoint setup, but if you can read that, I'll put a link to the PowerPoint. This is a really cool piece by Judy Chicago, 1977. She examines, what is feminist art. So I put this in here to start because I want people to prime their minds by thinking, okay, what am I looking at? What is feminist art? What is art made by women? Why is it in here? Next, I want there to be like a big sign or whatever. Exhibits have text, a lot of text. So this is going to be the next text, Feminism 1900s. Next, Georgia O'Keeffe, can't have 20th century woman without her. I really love this abstraction, Seaweed and Water. I think it draws in some naturalism, and of course, she is known for her sensuality and her paintings that really look like vulvas, and I think this is really nice representation of her work. And so, yeah. Next, we've got one of the pieces of the large part of the dinner party by Judy Chicago again. This is the place setting for Artemisia Gentileschi. Gentileschi is obviously a household name for women artists, but she's before the 1900s. So, but Judy Chicago obviously honored a lot of women in her dinner party, and I think picking this artist is really important because she paved the way for women artists, and I think that adding her to this shows off Judy Chicago and Gentileschi. So the next section of it, we're going to focus on motherhood and domesticity. This would be another plaque situation. We've got The Indian Dancer by Hannah Hawk. I really liked her this semester. This would be really cool to have. Next, we've got Frida Kahlo. We talked about Mexican muralism this semester, so I think she'd be really great to have in here. Plus, Frida Kahlo, very famous woman artist. She changed the game as far as art goes and like defining womanhood and androgyny and everything. Plus, her Henry Ford Hospital really talks about womanhood and like motherhood, especially with her miscarriage that she unfortunately suffered through. Next, we have Dorothea Lange. We have War Babies, Richmond, California, but also we have Vietnamese Mother and Migrant Mother. I really wanted to put these two next to each other because I want the audience to really compare the two and contrast because obviously Migrant Mother is like one of her most famous pictures, but I want people to see her other work because it's really stunning. And she is a very famous photographer, and she really changed the way photography was sort of thought about and the way that photography as an art was thought about, especially when regionalism rolled in. Next, we've got Faith Ringgold. I really wanted to add her in because she is a great example of someone who represents not only women artists, but also Black women artists. She sort of represents that intersectionality that is really important, especially in the 1900s when there were so many social movements going on. So we have Street Story Quilt from her, and we have Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima. This is also an interesting thing to put in there because it's fiber arts, and fiber arts are traditionally associated with women, not only because of the art, but also because of the community associated with fiber arts. So I really wanted to add that in there. And then the final section of the exhibit would be sexuality, op art, and abstraction. I'm really excited about this one, so this would be another plaque situation. So lastly, we have a Bridget Riley piece, which I really loved. She was so cool. She really inspired the op art movement, in my opinion. Um, and I really wanted to include her in this exhibit. And then lastly, this is a trigger warning for sexual abuse. Lastly, we have Yayoi Kusama. We have Phyllis Field. But also we have a um, little poster she made called Kusama Presents an Orgy and an Anatomic Explosion press release. The first one is a little bit more well known from her, but the second two I had never seen before. So I really wanted to um, put her work in there, but also put some of her lesser known work in there. And I think she just really is a great example of contemporary art, but also art that really ushered in not only modern art, but also contemporary art into the next century. And here are my sources.